what right now is the tension between like, the traditional Russian culture and like what progress would look like in Russia? What is the tension in that right now?
It's like a super interesting question, in fact, because I caught myself on a thought recently. So I was reading up about different liberal ideas and stuff, and I realized that if you take like two preconditions, like you take everything absolutely from a liberal point of view, like let people live. This is like the first point, and the second point is progress is kind of like a imperialist shit. It's like when you want to show other people that the way they live is kind of outdated, like let us Europeans in fancy clothing come to
Right.
the what's it, land of fire, like they're in the on the tip of South America, and let us teach you how to
progress.
How to progress, because there is development, but there is no such thing as progress because there is no like goal in life. There is literally no goal.
If there's no end goal, can you progress to something if there isn't an end in sight?
So there will be development.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Russians are pretty different in some things. I like how Mr. Harari, Noi Harari, that made Homo Deus. Interesting book, guys. Take it with a pinch of salt. I mean, I try to retell it to people, and at the half of my in the middle of my retelling, I just realized doesn't make sense now. But some parts are great. So he's in particular, he's speaking about the different branches of humanism, and the socialist kind of side of humanism is more oriented towards what impact are you having on the community. So it's not the idea of like what you personally want.
Mm-hmm.
Like Russians or like Soviets didn't have much of the psychotherapy over there. It was mainly like talk to your friends, or like rather not your friends, or like you talk to your mom very quietly in the kitchen, just to not let it out, and then and whatever you are doing has some sort of an impact on the society, and this actually matters. So it becomes clear in the difference of positions. And the question, what I was explaining my dad, what are trans people, and like what Russians are very poorly educated on this sort of matters, because now we've banned everything. Now you cannot read stuff, and Nabokov as well, because don't go to the United States. That is bad. It is not patriotic to go to United States and get fucking Nobel Prizes. So I was trying to explain to my dad what something about the trans people and their problems with the healthcare systems, and his point of view was like, okay, but how do we secure that there is enough surgeons, or like there is enough medical people for the whole society? And I think it's kind of like probably the point of view of skeptics all around the world, but in Russia, I think it goes very well with this Soviet mindset of it's not about what you personally want and think about your identity.
It's about the resources of the collective.
Exactly, that's about the resources that we can afford. So,
and that's pretty deeply rooted in Russian history at this point. Like those ideas of the Russian resources, the Russian collective is. I mean, that idea of Mother Russia rings true even in that statement, in a sense. It's the idea that like the collective resources is greater than the individual. Where in the United States, it'd be almost the exact opposite in a lot of ways, where like the individual is what matters. The individualism of freedom, the American dream, creating your own like success, that you can go from nothing to something, like these, like you can outperform the collective. Like it's a very interesting difference, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like specific examples of what I thought it's actually quite different between Russians and Americans, that we have like a different attitude to prisons. I've heard it. I'm not making it up. I legitimately heard it from someone else.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not a very big problem for your image if you've been into a prison for like half a year for taxation problems or something like that.
No, like these white crimes is what, you normally hear it as like, yeah, tax evasion or like, something like those lines is like, yeah, it happens. Good job trying to short the system, There's
like,
almost something like that. Obviously, if you take it to the extremes, like, I don't know if you heard about like FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, like those extremes when you're robbing billions of dollars from the American or the international public, like, okay, well, that's insane. Like, you should be in prison for a long time. But I would say from the average American, if you heard someone was in jail for 6 months for tax fraud, you'd be like, eh.
Yeah, I think in Russia, as far as I understand, it's a pretty big stigma for people because you are asked to provide documents that you haven't been in prison every time you apply for a job. And if you've been in prison once, that's gonna raise questions. And in general, like Russian prisons are not fair. Like there's a lot of corruption and different weird stuff going on.